stay away from politics. This is the kind of advice that we are given when we are attending a dinner party or hosting one, or when we're meeting family around the sort of dreaded holidays, or when you're at work. Or perhaps if you are an online creator, you are a content creator, an artist, perhaps you're a singer, musician, and you need to appeal to the masses. Stay away from politics because it's a danger zone, because you're going to upset somebody. There's always somebody who isn't going to agree with you when it comes to politics. But let's zoom out even more than that. Let's look at sociopolitics. Let's look at social issues, not just political ones, because now everyone online has an opinion. So how can you have an opinion as a creator, as an artist, a thinker, a leader, an entrepreneur, if you are visible online, if you're putting out content online, like me? How can you stay away from politics? So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Videos every Monday and Friday. I'm keeping up with the schedule. I'm pretty proud of myself considering it's not my only channel. And this is where I speak about strategic thinking, being a reflective, critical thinker for your personal or your professional life. Now, I'm speaking from some experience when I talk about this topic. Why am I talking about it? Okay, let's give a real life example and then my advice. But actually, no, let's just give you the advice straight away. If you're starting out, if you're new to being a visible artist or somebody who is now online and having a public profile, go straight for it. If you have quite a firm political belief, immediately put it out there so that you can begin to build your audience around that pretty certain confident belief or value system that you have. Why am I saying this? You don't want to try and appeal to everybody and then disappoint people, and then it becomes more of an issue later. It becomes more of a PR nightmare. If you're just starting out, then you might as well just show it all, bear it all, give it all. And again, the reason why I'm saying that is because you could then build a community and a following around your value system. If you are somebody who tries to be as neutral as possible, then just don't take on any positions, even if you feel pretty strongly. Because if in the end you're going to be zooming out and thinking about the bigger picture, you're going to regret taking that sort of entrenched view, opinion position, right? So that's when I would suggest, if you're not sure, or if you know that you're going to inevitably eventually do that zoom out and not to be so tunnel visioned about that one issue or thing, whatever it is, then it's best not to get into the sort of party, political, controversial, public stuff. It's best to stay out of it. So let me give you an example. I said I would. My own example. So as you may or may not know, I talk about media, politics, and entertainment on my commentary streaming channel. I stream on YouTube and Twitch. And recently, I did a naughty thing. The naughty thing I did was I criticized Gary Stevenson, who has suddenly gotten really popular. He's got more than 1 million subs, and he is speaking to an experience, a struggle that so many of us who are not the uber rich are experiencing. And he's essentially saying, tax the wealthy more, tax their wealth more, not their income. That was a distinction I had to be informed about and educated on. Tax the wealthy more and provide more opportunity, I guess, eventually for the poor. Around just pretty much, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward, sensible, nice, positive message and mission for somebody who apparently has already made a gazillion amount of money. I'm not even quite sure if that makes sense, but they've made a lot because Gary Stevenson was a former trader. Why was this an issue? Well, I decided to take a position, and the position was, I do not follow any ology or any ism. I don't get evangelical about any thinkers or leaders or political parties. I tend to be quite skeptical and cynical. I like to read between the lines. And if I see anyone or hear anyone using a struggle story, an experience that is quite an emotive one for so many, use it in order to grow a movement that I'm not quite sure about, and they start to look a little bit political and ideological, then I will most definitely be cynical and read between the lines, and I'll question and I'll push back. That's what I did. But you see, because I wasn't giving my full support to something that is sort of growing in popularity, I began to sort of get sucked in to this sort of us and them. And I was seen to be siding with the entrepreneur in the debate rather than the person who was essentially being the revolutionary for the working class. Even though I myself had humble beginnings, and I would still say, I'm not an uber rich person. So my experience with that has been, well, it's okay, because since I started this whole YouTube visible being person, I've always been this sort of like person in terms of having opinions, of being sort of as neutral as possible, trying to zoom out as much as possible, owning up to my biases, my subjectivity, admitting that I am subjective, and to be very sort of consistent in the message that we are all biased. We have to challenge our own assumptions. I use comedy and a bit of trolling and in order to get my message across and to make things a little bit light. It doesn't resonate with everyone, but because I've started in that way since I started streaming on that channel, and even here when I talk about certain things that affect us personally and professionally, and I'm offering kind of strategic advice, it's much more professional, I'll still weave in some personality. I want to make it less stiff. I want to offer you a more rounded experience, kind of like this sphere. It's got many sides, but they're all kind of melded into one another to create this sort of sphere. And that's who we are as people. There's all kinds of overlap. And so we're never just one thing, we're never just looking at something one way, and we're never just certain about it forever. We might be certain about it now and then it will change in the future. And we should allow ourselves that kind of room. So start as you mean to go on. If you are somebody who thinks a certain way, who is quite strong on certain beliefs and values, start as you mean to go on. If you're unsure, do not. Just don't step into it, because the arena is messy. Oh, the comments and the dislikes I've gotten. And funnily enough, the way YouTube works is the more it doesn't matter what the engagement is. If it's super negative, and the couple of videos that I've put out, most of my regular subs, nearly all of them, have supported it. But because it's then been thrown out to people who aren't familiar with me and who are just more, familiar with the person and evangelizing for them, they have all kind of given it thumbs down. So in terms of like the metrics of those videos, it's more sort of negative than it is positive. But the engagement has been ridiculous. I mean, so many comments, so many conversations, which is what I absolutely love. And actually, it doesn't put me off when I see more dislikes than likes, because I'm still growing that particular channel. But interestingly, the algorithm will continue to throw it out even if people don't like it or disagree with you. So that's part of the experience when you are going to be in the arena, if you are going to be vocal. And so I would just really invite you to reconsider sharing your position if you're not sure, if you're not ready for the arena. I have, I would say, not even a thick skin. I would say I'm much more removed, and I can remove myself. Although I would say on occasion I have quite thin skin, and then I have to check myself and remind myself what I'm doing, what I'm doing it for. So, I'm only human. We all are. I don't have a thick skin. I think we all have thin skins. But I'm able to sort of check myself, challenge myself, remove myself a little bit, and come back to it and not be so close to it. I think it's really important that we give ourselves that opportunity, that little bit of space. And so I can't be in my YouTube studio comments all the time, because once you begin to say stuff, you're going to get a lot pouring in, but it doesn't last. It just doesn't. Do you remember back in the day when there was that big Hugh Grant controversy, and he was caught with somebody of an interesting sort of occupation in a vehicle, I think in LA. At that time, for him and Liz Hurley and everything else that surrounded it, it was a pretty big deal. Now, that's nothing compared to a few bad comments on a YouTube video, but I'm just asking you to do a zoom out thing. Now look at them. Now look at him. I mean, it's many, 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 many years since, and people move on. And now we're in a different era where no one's waiting around for what the headlines and the photos and the newspapers, etc., are going to be like in the morning. They're every second on X and everywhere else. So people move on fast. They get bored because there's more information, more opinions, more content, more commentary coming their way, and so it's just not. It's not that deep. So if you do want to get in the arena, if you become super successful, it might get a little bit deep. You might have to be really immersing yourself in the depths of it because you have grown in such popularity. I myself am not there yet, or perhaps will ever be, but that's okay. As long as in my corner or area of the internet, I am doing my bit and doing it consistently, I'm good with that. But if you are destined for massive things and a lot of popularity, then I would say start as you mean to go on. If you are really beginning to build your niche and your audience, start as you mean to go on. Share what you think, because eventually any artist, any public figure will be pressed on their opinion and their position on socio-political matters. So start as you mean to go on. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments. See you every Monday and Friday. Welcome new subs. And I will see you in the next one.